It was our tradition to start the day like this, with a breakfast full of laughter and stories. I've always loved these moments, little slices of time when life seemed perfect. Do you remember the first time I tried to make this bread, Grandma? I asked, stirring the dough with my hands. The flour made a light cloud in the air, and I laughed as I remembered the scene. Of course I remember, Sophia. You almost burned down the entire kitchen, she replied, laughing. Her eyes sparkled with memory, and I could see her youthfulness even with the marks of time on her face. But I never lost faith in you, my artist. Every great artist starts with some mistakes. And you were my best teacher, weren't you? I said, as I placed the bread in the pan and put it in the oven. I think I inherited your talent for creating good things. Talent? You have a gift, my dear. Art flows from you like water from a river. But remember, if true art is made with the heart. Her tone was serious, but the smile was still there. Mercedes always had a way of reminding me of the importance of feeling. Our breakfast continued with more stories. I was prompted to ask about the days when she was young and dreamed of being an artist. Mercedes described her adventures with a passion that seemed to infect the air around us. I used to sit on a park bench with my sketchbook, and the world was my studio. Every leaf, every flower, every person was a work of art waiting to be captured. I wish I could have had those adventures with you, I said, imagining his youth full of energy and dreams. Just imagine, me with a notebook and you teaching me everything. You can still have these adventures, Sophia. The world is vast and full of inspiration. Go, create, paint each day as if it were a blank canvas, she encouraged, her voice full of love and determination. After we finished breakfast, I noticed that Mercedes was paler than usual. She stood up slowly, as if every movement was a challenge. I'm going to get some rest, darling, she said, her voice a little tired. You don't need to worry, Grandma. I cleaned the kitchen, I replied, trying to hide the worry that began to settle in my heart. She smiled, but I noticed the smile didn't reach her eyes. As I washed the dishes, I couldn't help but feel a lump in my throat. The weight of her weakness bothered me. The image of the strong, vibrant woman I had always known was fading, and this left me distressed. No, 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 I muttered to myself. She's going to be fine. It's just a bad day. After a few minutes, I returned to the living room, where I found Mercedes sitting in her favorite armchair. The blanket she usually used felt a little heavier that morning. Grandma, are you feeling okay? I asked, sitting down by your side. I'm just a little tired, my dear. Nothing a good sleep can't fix, she said, but the sparkle in her eyes was a little dull. Can I get you some water? Or a tea? It always makes you feel better. I wanted to do something, anything, to alleviate the worry that grew inside me like a shadow. Some tea would be great, but I really don't want to bother you, Mercedes replied. But I was already on my feet, heading towards the kitchen. As the tea boiled, my mind was full of thoughts. What if something was really wrong? I didn't want to imagine the possibility of losing the only family I had. The weight of this idea was almost unbearable. Breathe, Sophia, I told myself, trying to find some calm. She needs you strong now. When I returned with the cup of tea, I found Mercedes looking out the window, her gaze lost on the horizon. What are you thinking, Grandma? I asked, handing her the cup. Ah, just remembering old days, Sophia. Days when I was young and full of life. Looking at the world with an artist's eyes, she replied, taking a sip of her tea. You're still full of life, Grandma. Every day that passes, you teach me something new, I said, trying to keep the conversation light, even though my heart was heavy. You are a sweetheart, my dear, but sometimes life teaches us difficult lessons, doesn't it? Her tone was serious, and I knew she was referring to something more than mere memories. I felt a chill down my spine. I tried to change the subject, but something inside me stirred. Let's do something fun today. How about we draw together? I can show you some of my new paintings, I suggested, wanting to bring back the sparkle in her eyes. Of course, honey. Come on, she replied, but as she stood up from her seat, I noticed she hesitated. The movement was slow, and I couldn't ignore the worry growing in my chest. Do you need help, Grandma? I asked, walking over to her quickly. No, you don't need to worry. I'm just a little tired. I'm going to the table, she said, but the weakness in her voice made my uneasiness even stronger. As she sat at the table, I felt torn between wanting to be strong and needing to spill all my worries. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm wasting the time we have together, I admitted, trying to find the courage to be honest. Don't worry about it, my love. Every moment we spend together is precious. What matters is the connection we have, not the time, she replied, taking my hand. Her touch was gentle, but there was a weight to her words that made me feel like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. I just want you to be okay, Grandma, I said, my voice breaking. The lump in my throat was back, and I fought back the tears. Sometimes I'm afraid. Afraid of what, Sophia? She asked, looking into my eyes with the wisdom of someone who has weathered many storms. Of the future, of losing you, I confessed, sincerity pouring out like a torrent. You are all I have. Without you, I don't know what it would be like. She squeezed my hand and smiled, but the sadness in her eyes was undeniable. You are stronger than you know, and I will always be with you, in every brushstroke, in every laugh, in every memory. Love is eternal, my dear, and that is something no one can take away from us. I wanted to believe her words, but the reality of her weakness haunted me. The day had started out so bright, but now the cloud of uncertainty hung over us. As I looked at my grandmother, I thought about how it could capture everything we felt. The love, the pain, the beauty of the present moment. All of this was intertwined in our story, and I knew I needed to find a way to express that, not just to myself, but to her. Life was a cycle, and I was about to discover how deep that cycle could be. It took me a while to work up the courage to drive to the hospital. Anxiety seemed to crush me inside the car, and every red traffic light made me feel like the world was stopping, while I just wanted everything to go back to the way it was before. Mercedes' hand rested gently on my knee, a gesture that had always calmed me, but today it felt like a cruel reminder of what was to come. It's okay, honey, she said, her voice soft but a little shaky. We're just doing an exam, and then we'll go home. I tried to absorb his words, but the truth was that my heart was racing. I looked at her, and for a moment I saw the weakness in her eyes. The glow that had always been there, as he told stories about his youth, seemed dimmed, as if a shadow was settling between us. When we arrived at the hospital, the smell of disinfectant invaded my nostrils, and the feeling of nervousness increased. It was as if every step we took toward reception echoed a warning in my mind. Something wasn't right. Come on, Sophia. Just a routine checkup, Mercedes said, trying to encourage me. She was always the strong one, the one who supported me in my most difficult moments. But right now, I was the one who needed to be strong. We waited in the waiting room, and the tension was palpable. The room was full of people who looked just as lost as we were, and I couldn't focus on anything other than the weight of Mercedes' hand in mine. I looked at the clock several times. Every second seemed like an eternity. Finally, a nurse called us. Mercedes, it's your turn. My heart raced in my chest. I wanted to hold my grandmother's hand tightly, but I knew I needed to let her go. She stood up slowly, and I followed her, a step behind. The exam seemed to take forever. Mercedes had always been so resilient, and now I saw her being subjected to a series of tests, her fragile body exposed to a cold machine. I sat, waiting, trying to find a sign, a look that said everything would be okay. But when the doctor finally came in, I knew something was wrong. Mercedes, he began, his voice deep and careful. We need to talk about the results. I felt a wave of panic rising in me. What would he say? The doctor turned to me, and the expression on his face was anything but comforting. Sophia, it's important that you hear this too. I felt a lump in my throat. What is happening? I asked, my voice cracking. Mercedes has a terminal diagnosis. Her condition is advanced and, unfortunately, there are not many treatment options. The words echoed in my mind, and I could barely process them. The ground seemed to open up beneath my feet. I looked at Mercedes. Her expression was one of painful acceptance, but I couldn't understand it. How could this happen? But what if we try something else? I didn't know what else to say. Despair took over me. I'm sorry, Sophia, the doctor said, his voice deep and full of compassion. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes we can't fight what is beyond our control. I walked into the hallway, feeling like the world around me had disappeared. Tears began to stream down my face, and I didn't know how to deal with the pain that consumed me. Why was this happening? Why did my grandmother, the person who was always by my side, have to go through this? Hot tears streamed down my face, and I let myself slide against the wall. The sound of people passing by, doors closing, everything seemed so far away. My mind was full of memories. The laughter in the kitchen, her advice when I was sad, the stories she told about her youth. The love we had always felt for each other now seemed like a distant light, about to go out. Then I heard Mercedes' voice. Sophia, darling. She was there, at the end of the hallway, looking at me with a sad but loving smile. Don't cry, please. How can I not cry? I said, my voice cracking. You are all I have. She approached, and I hugged her tightly, as if I wanted to hold her to me forever. I will always be here, love. The love we have for each other isn't going anywhere. Even if the days are difficult, we will face it together. I knew she was trying to be strong for me, but that only made everything more painful. I don't want you to go, Mercedes. I don't want to live without you. And you don't have to, she replied, pushing away up from the hug to look into my eyes. Love is eternal, Sophia. We will always be connected, no matter what. Her words were like a balm, but the pain was still very present. The doctor appeared again, and his presence reminded me of the reality we were facing. We need to talk about next steps, he said, looking between the two of us. About what? I asked, anxiety returning to consume me. About how we can take care of Mercedes at this time. The focus is on making sure she is comfortable and surrounded by love. I looked at my grandmother, who nodded, and the sight of her, so strong and yet so fragile, broke my heart. What do you need, Mercedes? What can I do for you? I was willing to do anything. Trafficking that you will continue to live, Sophia, that you will continue to paint and create. The love we have for each other should manifest itself in your art, she told me, her voice firm despite the weakness her body demonstrated. I promise, I said, even though I didn't know if I could keep that promise. But you have to stay with me. Mercedes smiled, and even in the midst of the pain, there was a light in her eyes. I will always be with you. When we finally left the hospital, the reality of what we were facing hung over me like a dark cloud. The drive home felt longer than ever, but I knew I needed to be strong, not just for myself, but for Mercedes. After all, she had always been the light of my life, and now it was my turn to be hers. The pain of the news of my grandmother's terminal diagnosis still pulsed in my chest like an open wound. When we left the hospital, the sun was setting, turning the sky a soft, almost comforting orange. But nothing could calm the storm that was brewing inside me. The house was quiet, a heavy silence that seemed to echo the absence of laughter and stories that once filled every corner. I felt lost, as if I were floating in a sea of uncertainty, and the pain of the possibility of losing my grandmother, the only family I had, left me feeling helpless. That night I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the dish I had prepared. The vegetable soup was almost untouched, and the smell that once brought back memories of happy times now only reminded me of what was at stake. Hearing the soft creaking of the wood of the chair where my grandmother used to sit, her image came to mind. Her bright eyes, the infectious laugh that still echoed in my memory. Sophia, honey, what are you doing? My grandmother's voice sounded delicate, but full of love. I'm trying to cook, Grandma, but I'm not hungry, I replied, feeling a tear slide down my face. I wanted to be strong, but her fragility was breaking me inside. She approached, supporting up at the table. Daughter, I know it's difficult, but you need to take care of yourself, too. I don't want you to suffer alone. I felt her gaze pass through me, and it was as if she could see all my insecurities, all my pain. I can't think of anything else but you. What will I do without you, Grandma? The question came out of me like an anguished whisper. You will make art, my dear, and you will do it in honor of me, she said, with a soft smile that still had some of its old vitality. You have this incredible talent, and I always knew that one day you would shine." Those words lit a small fire inside me. I didn't know if I could do it, but the idea of paying homage, it gave me a purpose, something to hold on to through the pain. "Maybe I can do an exhibit, something that shows how much you mean to me," I said, the idea taking shape in my mind. "That would be wonderful. You should start right now," she replied, her smile widening. "Use your colors, your emotions. I want you to paint everything you feel, everything we experience together." And so, I decided that what I needed to do was create. Art has always been my language, the way I expressed what was inside me. I already had some blank canvases stored in my studio, waiting for a moment like that. The idea of creating an exhibition in honor of my grandmother prompted me to get up from the table. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the room in an almost magical way. I got up early, determined to transform my pain into something beautiful. I found a large, clean canvas and, with a brush in hand, I began to work. The soft music playing in the background seemed to encourage each stroke of the brush. But, although the idea of creating was comforting, the truth is that with each stroke, with each color I chose, the pain of imminent goodbye became more intense. "That blue is beautiful, Grandma. You've always loved blue, haven't you?" I murmured, as if she could hear. "I will use this to represent the sky you always taught me to admire." As I spoke, tears began to run down my face. The brush shook in my hand, but I continued, trying to turn my love into art. The days passed, and as I worked on my paintings, Mercedes' health deteriorated. I had promised myself to be strong, but there were moments when everything became unbearable. One night, after a particularly difficult day, I decided I needed to see there. I entered her room, where the soft light from a lamp illuminated her tired face. "Hi, my love," she said, a gentle smile playing on her lips. "How are your paintings?" "They're graduating, Grandma, but I feel like I'm not doing justice to everything you mean to me." My voice cracked, and the tears began to fall again. "You are doing exactly what you need to do. Every stroke carries your essence, your love," she replied, taking my hand. "Remember, if love is eternal, even if life has its end. And I will always be with you, Sophia." "Do you promise?" I asked, the need for reassurance piercing my heart. "I promise. Always," she said, and in that moment, I believed it. What I felt for her couldn't be erased, even if she was no longer physically present. In the days that followed, I filled the canvases with vibrant colors, mixing shades of blue and yellow, like the sky and the sun. Painting became a form of therapy, a sanctuary where I could express my love and pain. Each work I completed seemed to capture a fragment of our time together, a memory I wanted to preserve. One afternoon, while I was in the middle of repainting, I found a small box full of old photos. Upon opening it, a wave of nostalgia hit me. There were images of Mercedes in her youth, smiling, full of life. One of them showed her in a flowery dress, with her hair flowing in the wind. Natural light filtered through the window, and I realized that this image was the inspiration I needed. "Grandma, look at this," I said, holding up the photo. "You were so beautiful. I want to capture that in my painting." Her gaze lit up, and I saw in her eyes the young woman she had been. "Oh, how I loved dancing back then." She laughed, and the sound of that sound was like music to me. "Make a painting that represents that. Show the joy, the freedom." It was then that I understood. I wasn't just creating art to express my pain, but to celebrate the life she lived. I remembered I was told the stories she told about her youth, the dances and laughter, the love and love. And so, as the brush glided across the canvas, I began to paint a scene that portrayed the essence of who she was. The joy she had brought into my life was reflected in every color I applied. In this way, the nights became long, but full of meaning. Each finished painting was not just a work of art. It was a way to keep my grandmother's memory alive, the love she taught me, the strength that was always by my side. All of this was transformed into colors, shapes, emotions. And when I had a moment of doubt, I always ran back to her, seeking comfort and inspiration. "Sophia, you are stronger than you think. Never forget that," she said, and those words were what I needed to hear to keep going. The day I decided that the exhibition would be my tribute to Mercedes was a milestone. I wanted everyone to be able to feel the love I felt for her, the connection we had, even in the face of the pain of loss. And with each stroke of the brush, I knew that, in some way, she would always be present in my life. Sitting at the living room table, surrounded by paints, brushes, and blank paper, I looked at the album of memories I had started to compose. The soft afternoon light filtered up through the curtains, creating a cozy atmosphere that contrasted with the storm of emotions I felt inside. Each blank page challenged me to capture the essence of my grandmother, Mercedes, and the memories we shared. I wanted her to be immortalized not only in my memories, but also in every brushstroke I put on the canvas. As I was sorting through some old photos, a small image of Mercedes in her youth caught my eye. Her radiant expression and wind-blown hair transported me to a time when she was full of life and dreams. "Look at you, Grandma," I murmured with a nostalgic smile. "You were always so beautiful." Mercedes entered the room, a little weaker than usual, but still, with that special sparkle in her eyes. "What are you doing, my dear?" he asked, leaning up on my desk, trying to understand what I was creating. "I'm making a memory album, Grandma. I want all our stories to be saved forever. Look at this photo of you." I held it gently, as if it were a rare treasure. She took the photo between her trembling fingers, and her pupils lit up as she recognized that moment. "Ah, I was so young and fearless. I remember that day. I went to a party with your aunts, and we danced the night away. I can't remember the last time I did something like that," she laughed. But there was a hint of melancholy in her voice. "We can dance again, Grandma. How about that? We can put on some music and dance right here." I knew it was a simple gesture, but I needed to do something that would connect us, even if it was just for a few moments. "Ah, Sophia, my body doesn't respond like it used to. But if you want, we can dance from the heart," she said, with a smile that lit up her face. Those words touched my soul. I knew that deep down, the love we shared was what really mattered. "Let's dance our hearts out, then." I put some soft music on, and as the melody filled the room, I moved slowly, gesturing as if the space between us was connected by invisible threads of love. Mercedes did the same, she moved with a slow, gentle rhythm, and I felt that, even in her weakened state, she was there, alive in every step, in every smile. "You are my art, darling." It always was. "Every brushstroke of yours is an extension of me," she said, her voice soft, as she looked into my eyes. "It makes me want to create something special for you, Grandma. I want everyone to know how amazing you are. You taught me everything about love and beauty." And at that moment, an idea was born in me, like a flame that was lit. "I'm going to paint something that represents both of us. Something that captures our bond. A portrait of the love we have for each other." Mercedes smiled, and her eyes lit up at the idea. "That would be wonderful, Sophia. Art is a form of immortality. What do you have in mind?" "I want to paint a big mural. A picture where we can be together, in a place that represents our connection. A garden, perhaps, full of flowers you love," I said, emotion bursting through every word. "We can put everything we love in there." She nodded, her gaze dreamy. "Yes, the daisies. I remember when you were little and always brought me daisies from the garden. And the roses, how I love roses. Let's add a little bit of everything. Yes, a bowflower iris. And maybe I can include a starry sky to remind you that you will always be my guiding star." With each idea we shared, the energy between us grew, and I felt the pain of reality dissipate, even if for a few moments. After a while, I sat back at the table, with Mercedes' photo in my hands. "I need inspiration. I'll start sketching the idea. Can you tell me more about those stories you always mention?" "Of course, my dear. Let's talk about the days when your grandfather and I danced under the stars. He would take me to watch the sunset on the hill, and we promised each other that we would never stop loving each other. Love is like the sun, always returning, even after the darkest night." Mercedes' words flowed like a river, and I listened intently, each sentence becoming part of my painting. As she spoke, I began to sketch an image of her and me in the middle of a flower garden. where the blue sky met the setting sun. As I drew, I could feel her presence next to me, as if we were actually dancing among the flowers. "Grandma, what do you think about me painting you in a flower dress? You have always been the queen of our garden." "I would love that, Sophia. Flowers have always been my favorite. And you, my artist, have the gift of bringing life to everything you touch," she said, with a sparkle in her eyes. The conversation continued to flow between laughter and memories, and time seemed to have stopped. I was so immersed in that moment that I didn't realize how much time had passed. Each brushstroke I traced on paper represented not only the image of Mercedes, but also the memories, the laughter, and the tears we shared. "You know, darling, even when I'm not here anymore, I'll always be in your paintings. Love never goes away. It transforms and lives in you," Mercedes said, with a serenity that made me feel a lump in my throat. "I promise I will make you live forever in every painting, Grandma. Every color, every shape will be a celebration of the love we have for each other." With a satisfied smile, she pulled me close and gave me a kiss on the forehead, like a silent blessing. At that moment, I knew that art was not just a form of expression, but a bridge that connected us, even in the midst of pain and uncertainty. I was determined to transform my sadness into something beautiful, something that celebrated life and the love that would never cease to exist between us. With each passing day, Grandma Mercedes' health became a thicker shadow over my heart. Her fragility constantly reminded me of the reality that I tried to ignore, but which was becoming more and more evident. That morning, as the sun streamed through the kitchen window, I made her some strong coffee, just like she always liked. The aroma spread through the air, but it didn't bring the comfort I expected. "Hi, my love," she said in a soft but tired voice as I entered the room. His eyes, which had always shone so brightly, now seemed a little dim, as if the light was slowly fading. "You made coffee, didn't you?" "Of course, Grandma. Your favorite," I replied, trying to hide the concern in my voice. I placed the cup in his shaking hands and sat down next to him. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm well, just a little tired," she replied, but I knew it was more than that. Her gaze shifted to the window, where the wind rustled the leaves of the trees in the garden. It was as if she was getting lost in thought, far from me. "Grandma, do you want me to make you something? A snack? Or maybe we can watch that movie you love?" I tried to bring up topics we used to share, but her weakness made me restless. "Honey, I'd love to, but I think today I just want some quiet," she said, with a gentle but sad smile. "Sometimes silence speaks louder than any words, don't you think?" I agreed, but the truth is that the silence made me restless. The fear of losing every moment consumed me, and all I could think about was how I would like to freeze time. But time, as always, didn't stop for anyone. That afternoon, as I stood in the living room, trying to distract myself from the unfinished painting sitting there, the reality of his condition hit me like a punch in the gut. I heard her coughing hard from the room. It was a deep, ragged cough that reverberated through the hallway. My heart raced. I quickly got up and ran to the room. "Grandma, I'm coming," I screamed, my fear showing in every syllable. When I entered, I saw her leaning over the bed, with her hand on her chest, trying to catch her breath. My world seemed to fall apart in slow motion. "Sophia, honey, I'm fine. I just need a moment," she said, but the fragility of her voice didn't convince me. I felt a lump in my throat, and, without thinking, I approached her. "No, it's not okay. What can I do? Do you want me to call a doctor?" I was almost panicking, tears threatening to slide down my face. She raised her hand, asking for calm. "Please don't worry so much. Sometimes I feel short of breath. That's all." I sat next to him, holding his hand. "Grandma, I can't stand seeing you like this. What am I going to do without you?" She looked into my eyes, and I saw a sparkle of love and understanding. "Sophia, we all have time in this world, and it's important to remember that the love we have for each other will never fade. It will live on in you, in your memories, in your paintings. But that's not fair. I don't want to lose you." I was crying now, the tears flowing freely. "I know, my love, but life is made of cycles, and each one of them is precious. Please, whenever you miss me, remember of our love and of all the good times we had together, she replied, caressing my face with her other hand. I don't know if I can, I murmured, feeling the pain of his words. I just want you to stay here with me. I will be, Sophia. I always will be, she said, and there was a certainty in her voice that gave me a little comfort, even in the midst of despair. In the following days, the situation did not improve. Her health continued to deteriorate, and I tried to be strong, but the weight of sadness was immense. With each new cough, each new tiredness, my heart broke a little more. I sought refuge in painting, but even that seemed insufficient to alleviate the pain I felt. One night, as I was trying to work on a blank screen, I heard the familiar sound of her coughing again. Panic invaded me and, without thinking, I ran to his room. "Grandfather!" I shouted as I entered. She was sitting on the bed, with a tired expression, but when she saw me, a smile formed on her face. "Hi, honey. You have to stop running like that. You'll end up hurting yourself." "But you were having a coughing fit." "I was so scared," I said, not knowing if I should worry or try to be strong. I know. But you need to understand that some things are beyond our control," she replied, her voice soft but firm. I don't want to lose you. It scares me so much." The truth was that I was on the verge of despair, and every time she coughed, I felt like a piece of me was falling apart. "Sophia, my love, look at me." She looked at me with those eyes that were always full of love. "That's life. I'll always be with you, even when I'm no longer here. The love we have for each other is eternal, but how can I go on without you? You're all I have." I was starting to cry again, the pain becoming unbearable. "You will continue, yes? You are strong, and I will always be by your side, in your memories, in your paintings. I want you to live intensely, even if I am no longer present. We had so many good moments, and they don't leave," she told me, her gaze steady. "Promise you'll always be with me?" I asked between sobs. "I promise," she replied, and even though the words were spoken in a whisper, there was a strength in them that gave me a little hope. Weeks passed, and Mercedes' health continued to deteriorate. I hung on to her every word, as if they were ropes keeping me afloat. One night, as I watched her sleep, the pain of knowing what was coming paralyzed me. I wanted to scream, to cry, but I realized I needed to be strong for her. In that moment, as I looked at her face, I realized that the love we shared was stronger than any pain. And, while fear still consumed me, I knew that, despite everything, what mattered most was the love that united us. And that, I would never lose. When I first looked at the blank screen before me, a mixture of anxiety and determination took over my being. It was time to finalize the works for the exhibition, and I knew that each brushstroke would be a tribute to my grandmother, Mercedes. The colors danced in my mind, each one representing an emotion, a memory. "You can do it, Sophia." I remembered I heard her voice always encouraging. As I mixed the blue and yellow tones, a nostalgic glow appeared in my eyes. The blue referred to the sky that we used to admire together, and the yellow to the sun that illuminated our afternoons in the garden, where she told me stories from her youth. "What are you doing, my artist?" asked Mercedes, making her usual effort to approach the living room, where I was working. "I'm creating something special for you, Grandma. A painting that represents everything I feel for you," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the emotion that threatened to overflow. She smiled, even though her face was a little tired. "You've always had an incredible talent, Sophia. Never stop painting, even when I'm not here." His words, while hurtful, were also a call to action. I wanted her to see the beauty she would create, to feel the depth of love I had for her in every brushstroke. With my heart racing, I focused back on the screen. Each movement became a cathartic dance of memories and longings. The painting I was creating was a representation of our unconditional love, a cycle that, although it was approaching its end, would never cease to exist. As I worked, memories of our times together came flooding back like a sea of emotions. "Do you remember that time we had that picnic in the park?" I asked, without taking my eyes off the screen. "That day was so beautiful, and you almost lost your hat in the wind. Ah, how I wish I could relive those days. Mercedes replied, her voice a little weaker but full of nostalgia. I always loved those picnics. The food was never perfect, but the company was everything. Yes, Grandma, the company was everything, I said, feeling a rush of gratitude for every moment we had. And as I spoke, memories turned into strokes of ink. The vibrant green of the trees, the blue of the sky, and the yellow of the smiles we shared blended together on the screen. With each brushstroke, I let myself be carried away by the memories. Sometimes I would stop to look at the painting and think, this isn't just a work of art, it's a piece of us. And so, I lost myself in an almost meditative state, where the pain of loss mixed with the joy of memory. You're doing great, my dear, Mercedes said, watching carefully. This painting will touch the hearts of many people. You have a rare gift. Thank you, Grandma. But without you, none of this would be possible. You always believed in me, even when I doubted, I replied, a lump in my throat. I just want you to feel proud. She came closer, holding my hand tenderly. Sophia, I already feel proud. You are a light in the lives of everyone around you. Never forget that. Her words were a balm to my soul, even though the pain of reality still weighed heavily on our hearts. As the sun began to set, golden light illuminated the room, creating an almost magical atmosphere. How about some music while we work? I asked, trying to ease the tension in the air. Oh, that would be wonderful. Do you remember that song I used to play on the piano? Claire de Lune? You always said I played it like I was telling a story. Mercedes laughed, her eyes shining with the memory. Of course I remember. I'll put on some classical music to inspire us, I said, standing up. Me to get my cell phone. As soon as the music started playing, I turned back to the screen, feeling the energy transform around me. The soft sound filled the space, and I let each note guide me, transforming what was a mere screen into a march of love and memories. You know, Grandma, I feel like every time I paint, a part of you lives through me, I said, as the music enveloped me. That's true, darling. Art is a way of immortalizing what we love. Never forget that love is eternal, even when life comes to an end, Mercedes replied, and a tear slipped from her eye. The weight of her words resonated with me, and I knew she was right. As I applied the final strokes of the vibrant colors, a sense of urgency consumed me. The day of the exhibition was approaching, and I wanted everything to be perfect. You know, Grandma, I'm a little nervous about the exhibition. What if people don't like what I've created? I asked, insecurity creeping into my voice. Don't worry, my dear. What matters is that you put your heart into each work, and people will feel it. The love you have for me, for us, will be palpable, she said confidently. And remember yourself, you are not alone. I will be with you, always. Her words gave me strength, and I allowed myself to believe that, despite everything, the exhibition would be a celebration, not just of my art, but of the life we shared. You're right, Grandma. Let's do this together. As the hours progressed and the night approached, I finished the painting that symbolized our love. It was an explosion of color that captured not only the essence of Mercedes, but also our deep connection. I looked at the screen, admiring what I had created. That's perfect, I whispered. Yes, it's perfect, Mercedes agreed, looking at the work with a twinkle in her eye. I love every detail. You really captured our essence. I felt my heart warm with his words, and at that moment, I realized that, regardless of what happened, our story would be forever recorded in the colors and shapes that I had created. Thank you for believing in me, Grandma. It means the world to me. You will always have my blessing, Sophia. Now, let's get everything ready for the big day. The exhibition will be a success, she said, getting up slowly. Her determination was contagious, and I knew that, despite the difficulties, we were on this journey together. That night, as we were setting up the room for the exhibition, I found an old note from Mercedes in one of the books she always read. Live intensely, no matter what. The moments we share are eternal. The words echoed in my mind, and I knew that even though pain was lurking, I also had the power to transform that pain into beauty through art. The opening of the exhibition arrived, and nervousness tightened my stomach like a complicated knot. Every beat of my heart seemed to echo in my ears as I prepared for one of the most significant moments of my life. The gallery was full, a mix of friends, family, and even some strangers who were interested in my art. The walls were adorned with my paintings, each telling the story of my relationship with my grandmother, Mercedes. I had dedicated myself to each brushstroke, and now, looking at those works, I felt a wave of emotions that ranged from anxiety to joy. While I was organizing the last details, a group of friends approached. Among them was Clara, my best friend since childhood. She has always been my unconditional support, and, seeing when she smiled, I felt some of the weight I was carrying dissipate. "Sophia, you look wonderful," she said, holding my arm affectionately. "These paintings are incredible. Your grandmother must be so proud of you." "I hope so," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I just wanted to do something that really conveyed our love and the pain I'm feeling right now. That's what makes his art so special. You put your soul into each one of them. Remember yourself, you are not alone. We are all here for you. I thanked Clara with a smile, and, as I looked around, I noticed that the gallery was filling up. The soft music in the background created a cozy atmosphere, but the tension inside me remained. I knew I was about to give a speech, and the thought of it made me panic, not just because of the anxiety of public speaking, but because of the emotional toll I was about to share. As the guests settled in, I grabbed a glass of water and took a deep breath. I looked at the main painting, the one that depicted my grandmother and me in a moment of pure joy. The painting captured the essence of our love and, at the same time, the fragility of life. Every detail remembered. I remember the days spent in the kitchen, the laughter and the stories told between one spoonful of food and the next. Finally, the moment has arrived. One of my art teachers, who had become a beloved mentor, came on stage and demanded attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. Today, we celebrate not only art, but also the power of love and memories that shape us. It is an honor to introduce you to the talented Sophia, who dedicated this exhibition to her incredible grandmother, Mercedes." The applause echoed through the gallery, but I was still frozen, fear and emotion preventing me from moving. Then, the teacher made a gesture inviting to go up. With my heart racing, I took Clara's hand and walked to the stage. The crowd watched me, and a chill ran down my spine. "Hi, guys." My voice was shaky, but I managed to smile. "Thank you for being here tonight. This exhibition is very special to me. It's a tribute to the woman who shaped me, who taught me what true love and resilience are. My grandmother, Mercedes." A wave of emotion began to rise in my chest, and I saw some tears in Clara's eyes. In the last few months, life has presented me with challenges that I never imagined I would face. My grandmother's health deteriorated, and as I tried to deal with this pain, I found art as a way to express what I was feeling. Each painting here is a piece of our history. I heard whispers of understanding in the audience. Some people leaned forward, absorbing every word. I painted moments we lived together, from the afternoons in the kitchen, where she taught me how to cook our family recipes, to the moments of laughter and tears. This one, I pointed to the main painting, shows a sunny day when we decided to go to the park. We were so happy, surrounded by flowers and laughter. Life seemed perfect. As I looked at the painting, memories of that afternoon came back to me with a vengeance, and I almost lost control of my emotions. But I also painted moments of pain. The truth is that life is made of cycles. We have moments of joy and moments of sadness, and both are important. When my grandmother received her terminal diagnosis, I didn't know how to cope. The pain was intense, but it was at that moment that I realized that the love we shared could transcend even death. The tears started to slide down my face, and I didn't care to dry them. I wanted her to know how much I loved her and how much she taught me. Her love gave me the strength to move forward, even on the darkest nights. And I hope that when you look at these works, you feel the same connection that I feel with her. The silence in the room was profound, and I could feel everyone's eyes fixed on me, absorbing every word. I also want to thank all of you for being here. That means the world to me. You are an extension of our family, and your support is invaluable. As I concluded my speech, I took a deep breath and looked at the crowd. Now, I would like to reveal the main painting. I hope it conveys the love I feel for my grandmother and inspires everyone to cherish every moment they have with their loved ones. With a gesture, I removed the curtain that covered the painting. The painting revealed himself, and a murmur of admiration passed through the room. The sparkle in the guests' eyes and their emotional expressions told me that I had managed to convey the essence of what I felt. The room was filled with applause, and some people even stood up, giving a standing ovation. I looked at the painting, and a wave of gratitude washed over me. It was as if every applause was echoing the love I had always been able to feel for Mercedes. I knew she was there, somehow, smiling at me. "Thank you," I murmured, still emotional. "Thank you everyone for being here and celebrating life and love with me." The soft late afternoon light filtered through the window, casting dancing shadows on the living room floor. The aroma of fresh coffee mixed with the familiar smell of paints and brushes spread across the table. I sat, looking at the memory album I had begun to put together, the pages filled with photos and words that captured the essence of my grandmother, Mercedes. My heart still ached, but there was a new determination in me, a desire to honor her life through art. As I flipped through the pages, each photo transported me to a special moment. I saw my young grandmother, with a radiant smile, holding a red rose on a sunny day. In that image, she seemed so alive, so full of dreams. I could almost hear his laughter echoing in the air. "Look here, Sophie," I said loudly, as if she could hear me. "You always said that life was to be celebrated, even in the little things." I stopped, looking at the photo, and imagined her voice answering me. "Yes, my dear. Every moment is precious. Don't forget to enjoy each day, even when things get difficult." The memory brought a smile to my face, but soon the weight of her absence enveloped me again. I picked up the pen and started writing a little story about that day, about how she had taught me how to care for the flowers in the garden and the importance of watering them with love. With each word, I felt like I was bringing Mercedes back to life, a little of her light spreading across the paper. "I will continue to create," I muttered to myself as I wrote. "I'll do it for you, Grandma." That night, after a day full of memories, I went to Mercedes' room. She was lying down, her eyes half closed, but when she saw me, a smile lit up her face. "Sophia, my artist," she said, her voice soft but weak. "What have you been doing today?" "I'm working on the scrapbook, Grandma. I'm writing about the day you taught me how to garden," I replied, approaching from the bed and holding your hand. "It's so special. I feel you here with me." She squeezed my hand lightly, and her eyes shone with pride. "Ah, darling, this is beautiful. Life is made of memories, and you are the artist who can immortalize them. Keep creating, even when I'm no longer here." "I will, Grandmother. I promise," she said, trying to contain the tears that threatened to fall. "But I still want you here, by my side. I will always be with you, Sophia. In your heart, in your memories, and in your paintings," she stated, her voice shaking slightly. "And remember, if love never disappears, he transforms and continues to live." In that moment, I realized that the pain of loss could be transformed into something beautiful. Art could be my way of keeping love alive, of honoring the history we shared. The thought gave me strength, and a new idea began to take shape in my mind. I would create a new painting, one that captured the love between us, something that I could bring to life with each brushstroke. Over the next few days, I immersed myself in work. With each stroke, I felt like I was connecting my spirit to hers. I started wearing vibrant colors, the ones that always made her smile. I remember one afternoon, while mixing shades of blue and gold, thinking about the sky she loved to watch. "Sophia, you're so focused," she commented, leaning against up at the studio door. "What are you creating now?" "I'm trying to paint the sky you always loved, Grandma," I replied, smiling. "I want you to feel like you're in it every time you look at this work." Mercedes approached, admiring my work. "It's looking beautiful, my love. You have an incredible talent. But remember yourself, what matters is what comes from your heart." "I want you to feel this, Grandma." I want every person who looks at the painting to feel the love we have for each other, I said, feeling a rush of emotion. You'll make it, Sophia. Just follow your heart, she encouraged me, and I realized that even in her weakness, she was still my greatest source of inspiration. Amid so many emotions, we decided that every moment we spent together would be a celebration of life. We set up a small table in the garden, where we drank tea and talked about the past, present, and future. On one such afternoon, Mercedes said, "You must create a new exhibition, Sophia, one that shows not only your art, but also the love we have for each other." An exhibition? But I don't know if I'm ready, I confessed, hesitantly. You're more than ready. Art is a way to share your emotions, and your story is beautiful. Let the world see it, she encouraged me, her gaze full of love and trust. I'll think about it, grandmother, I replied, feeling a flame of determination grow within me. And so, with each day that passed, I felt stronger. The pain of loss was still present, but now it was accompanied by new hope. I began working on the exhibition with renewed fervor, and the idea of honoring my grandmother through art became a clear goal in my mind. That night, while organizing the works, I found an old letter that Mercedes had written. When I read it, I realized it was a small note that talked about living intensely. Her words touched my soul. Dear Sophia, never forget that every day is a gift. Love deeply, laugh loudly, and never be afraid to express yourself. Art is your voice, and life is your canvas. Tears streamed down my face as I read those words. I'm going to do this, grandmother. I'm going to live intensely and make sure your love always resonates in my works, I whispered, feeling her strength beside me. Preparing for the exhibition has become a sacred ritual. I surrounded myself with photos, memories, and the energy of the love we always shared. Each brushstroke was a conversation between us, an exchange of love that transcended time and space. As I worked, a thought stuck in my mind. Love is eternal, and I would perpetuate that through my art. The week after the exhibition had been a whirlwind of emotions, a cycle of feelings that repeated itself like the waves of the sea. My grandmother, Mercedes, was increasingly frail, and I felt like the time we had left together was quickly running out. It was a gut-wrenching sensation, as if sand were slipping through my fingers. I went to a corner of my studio, where there was a window that looked out onto the garden, a little refuge that helped me clear my mind. I looked outside and saw the flowers swaying gently in the wind, but the beauty of the moment couldn't erase the pain I felt in my chest. "Hi, Grandma," I murmured as I headed to her room. The smell of herbs and medicines filled the air, and sunlight gently streamed in through the window, illuminating his tired face. She was lying down, looking serene, but I knew that behind that calm expression there was an internal battle. "Hi, my dear," she replied, in a soft voice that still had the power to calm me. "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile even though I knew my soul was conflicted. The exhibition was wonderful. People loved their stories. "I always knew you had a gift, Sophia. You're a real artist," she praised, trying to sit up, but weakness stopped her. I ran over to her and helped her settle down better. "Thank you, darling. But it's not just about the art. It's about the love you put into each brushstroke." Those words touched me deeply. The love we had for each other was the true essence of my works. However, the reality was harsh. With each passing day, her health deteriorated more, and I felt like I needed to be there for her. But I also struggled with the despair that was growing inside me. "Grandma, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. The thought of losing you scares me," I said, my voice breaking. The tears started to run down my face, and I couldn't contain my sadness. Mercedes held my hand gently. "Sophia, you are already strong. I always knew you could do it. Life is a cycle, my dear. It's made of departures and arrivals. And even when I'm not here, my love will be with you." "But I don't want you to go," I protested, the pain almost suffocating me. "You're all I have." She smiled, with a sparkle in her eyes that gave me hope. "You have so much more than that. You have your art, your memories, and most of all, the love we built together. Promise me that you will continue to create and live intensely even when I am no longer by your side. I promise, Grandma, I replied, even though my heart was breaking. But that doesn't make it any easier knowing you can go at any time. I know, my love, death is a part of life, and I want you to remember me with joy, not sadness. Life is to be celebrated, and I want you to live yours fully, she said, with a serenity that inspired me. That night, as I prepared for bed, my mind was racing. Mercedes' image seemed increasingly distant, like a star that was beginning to fade. But at the same time, her words echoed in my mind, reminding me of the importance of living in each moment. I needed to find a way to honor his life and legacy. A day later, I decided it was time to face reality head-on. I went to her room again, a little more determined. Grandma, can you tell me about the letter you mentioned? The one you said you would leave for me? She looked at me with a curious expression, and a soft smile appeared on her lips. Ah, you're ready to listen, aren't you? I wrote some things for you, some lessons I've learned throughout my life. I want you to have them close to you, for when I'm no longer here. Yes, please, I begged, feeling like her every word was a treasure. I want to know what you would like to tell me. Mercedes gestured for me to come closer, and I sat down next to her. Life is full of challenges, Sophia, but never forget that love is the strength that holds us together. Even when the pain is intense, love can give us comfort. Remember, always make sure you're not alone. I won't forget, I assured, my voice breaking. I'll take your love with me wherever I go. Good darling. And when you're sad, look up at the sky. I'll be there, like a bright star, always watching over you, she said, with a sparkle in her eyes that gave me some peace. That night, as the moon lit up the sky, I sat at my desk, surrounded by brushes and paints. The image of Mercedes was always present in my mind. I picked up a blank sheet of paper and started writing. Dear Sophia, I began, emulating what I believed her voice would be. If you're reading this, it means I'm not here anymore. But know that I will always be by your side, in every stroke you make, in every smile you share. Life is a cycle, and I want you to celebrate every moment, even the difficult ones. Crying, I continued writing as the words flowed like a river. I was transcribing everything I felt, everything she had taught me. What I really wanted was for her to know how much I loved her and how much her presence had brightened my life. I want you to know that you were my biggest inspiration, I wrote. I would never have discovered the beauty of art without you. And even when the pain of your absence hits me, I promise that I will continue to create, live, and love. When I finished, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The weight of sadness was still there, but there was a new light within me. I knew I needed to be strong, not just for myself, but for her. After a few days, Mercedes' health deteriorated even further, and I prepared myself for what was to come. One night, as I watched the soft light of the lamp, I heard a faint movement coming from her room. I ran there and found breathing with difficulty. Sophia, she called in a weak voice. I walked over, holding his hand. I'm here, Grandma. What do you need? I asked, trying to hide the anguish I felt. I want you to read the letter out loud, she asked, with a pleading look. I need you to listen to my last lessons. With a trembling voice, I opened the letter I had written and began to read. Dear Sophia, if you're reading this, it means I'm not here anymore. As the words left my mouth, I saw Mercedes' expression change, her face relaxing as the familiarity of my words washed over her. Carry on, my dear, she said, as I read about love, resilience, and the beauty of living. That's all I want you to take with you. When she finished, I saw tears running down her face, but there was a smile on her lips. You did it, Sophia. You gave me life with your words and your art. And now, I can leave in peace. Tears flowed freely down my face, but I knew her love would always be with me. I love you, Grandma, I said, as she slowly closed her eyes, as if she was finally at peace. That night, as the world around me fell silent, I realized that the love we shared transcended life and death. And even though the pain of loss was intense, I knew I had a new purpose: to honor his memory, celebrate life, and transform pain into art. The week following my grandmother's death was a whirlwind of emotions. I felt like I was floating in an ocean of sadness, lost in waves of memory and pain. The void left by Mercedes was immense, like a black hole in the center of my being. However, in the midst of my grief, an idea began to germinate within me, a spark of hope that turned into an unshakable determination. I wanted to hold a new art exhibition, but this time, not in regret, but in celebration of life that my grandmother had lived. I looked into the studio, a space that used to be a haven for creativity. Now it seemed like a shrine of memories. The walls were covered in paintings, many of them depicting the vibrant essence of Mercedes. She always said that life was like a palette of colors, and I needed to learn how to mix them. I took a deep breath, trying to absorb her spirit, and got to work. "Come on, Sophia. It's time to do something amazing," I muttered to myself as I picked up the brushes and paint. The first painting I started working on would be a tribute to her, a representation of the cycle of life. I wanted to capture not only her essence, but also the lessons she taught me about love and resilience. Listening to the songs she loved, I immersed myself in the painting, the colors beginning to dance on the canvas, reflecting the joy she brought to my life. In the days that followed, each brushstroke became a form of communication with her. The memories intertwined with the ink, and I allowed myself to feel the pain, but also the gratitude. I remember when we were kids, making cookies in the kitchen. The smell of vanilla and chocolate was still fresh in my memory. "Sophia, life is made of sweet moments," she used to say. Now, I was turning these moments into art. One afternoon, while I was immersed in my work, I received a message from Clara, one of my best friends. "Hey, Sophia, I'm thinking about you. How about we meet for coffee? I think you need some love and support." The idea of a date seemed comforting to me. "Of course, Clara. Let's meet tomorrow," I replied, feeling a slight relief. The next day, the cafe was full of laughter and lively conversation. Clara arrived with a warm smile. "Hi, artist. How is your heart?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me in a tight hug. "I'm trying to find a way, you know? The exhibition is a way to celebrate my grandmother's life," I replied, as I looked into the steaming cup of coffee. "That's beautiful, Sophia. She's always been your biggest fan. What are you planning to show?" Clara asked, curious. "I'm creating a new work that represents the cycle of life. I want people to feel the joy it brought, even in the pain of loss," I explained, feeling the emotion building inside me. "You're going to rock. We can help with publicity. Let's do this together," Clara said enthusiastically. At that moment, I realized I was not alone. The love and support that surrounded my life was not just a memory. They were a living force. With the help of Clara and other friends, the new exhibition began to take shape. The space was decorated with photos of Mercedes, colorful flowers, and the works I was creating. Opening day arrived, and I was nervous, but also excited. As I was getting ready, I looked in the mirror and said, "Come on, Sophia, do it for her." In the gallery, the walls were adorned with my paintings, each telling a part of my grandmother's story. Friends and family began arriving, their voices filling the air with laughter and love. I was surrounded by a welcoming warmth that soothed the pain of loss. "Hi, Sophia. You look beautiful. I'm so proud of you," said Anna, a childhood friend. "Thank you, Anna. This means a lot to me," I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. I felt a bit like an actress on a stage, about to do her best. When the event started, I took the microphone. My heart raced as I looked at the crowd. "Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. This exhibition is a celebration of the life of my grandmother, Mercedes. She taught me about love, resilience, and the importance of living each day fully." I began, my voice shaking slightly. "I want you to feel the joy she brought into my life and how her love continues to guide me. This painting here, it represents the cycle of life. Every color, every stroke, is a piece of her that I carry with me." I continued, gesturing to the main work, a vibrant painting that captured the essence of my grandmother. As I spoke, tears began to run down my face, but they were tears of love and gratitude. Mercedes always said that life is a journey, and even though her journey has come to an end, the love she left behind will never be erased, I finished, feeling the energy in the room change. There was a deep, respectful silence, followed by warm applause. After the speech, people began to approach to see the works. I was surrounded by friends, family, and strangers who were touched by my story. "Sophia, this is wonderful. Your grandmother must be so proud of you," Clara said, holding my hand. "Thank you, Clara. It makes me feel like I'm honoring her," I replied, feeling a wave of comfort. At that moment, I realized that the pain hadn't gone away, but had transformed into something more beautiful, a connection with the people around me. Later, as the night progressed, a group of people approached me. They were friends who had also lost loved ones. "Hi, Sophia. We feel your pain. Your exposure is a reminder that love never disappears, even in loss," Lucas said, with an understanding look. "Yes, it's true. We're all in this together," I replied, feeling a sense of community forming. We began sharing stories about those we loved and lost, told through laughter and tears. The pain turned into a cycle of love and friendship, a reminder that even in the darkness, there is always light. That night, as I looked at the people around me, I realized that life went on. Mercedes' memory would live on in every brushstroke, in every laugh shared. And so, instead of an end, I saw a new beginning, a renewed cycle of love that would continue to thrive.